Representative Dave Maturen from the 62nd District joins us for his regular visit here. Good morning to you, Dave.
Good morning. It's actually the 63rd, but I know there's two of them in the county. So.
I know. We were just talking about, I was just telling you that I talked to Jim Hodsma recently, so I had 62nd on the brain. That's the district currently held by Dr. John Bison, and he's indicated he'll be running for the state senate.
That's right. Yeah.
So there'll be a race in the 62nd. We don't know about the 63rd yet. Ways away from that. So you're off right now from legislature?
Yes, we are. Yeah, we finished up actually a day early because we spent way too early in the morning a week or so ago taking care of things. So we wrapped it up last Wednesday and been off since Thursday and start about the first week in January. So
yeah, so a lot of people do that. Like Rank has that same schedule. Yeah.
Maybe he's a legislator wannabe, huh? You never know.
Yeah, I guess that's a possibility. Although you can't do both.
No,
we had a show here in the around 1959, 1960 called Sound Off. It was hosted by a guy named Ray Turner. He was the program director here at WBCK, came from upstate New York, and nobody did those programs in those days, really. I mean, that was way before talk radio.
Yeah.
But he had this show called Sound Off, and people would call in and be rather critical of city government and the mayor's regime, as it were, in that day. And then one day he announced that he was running for mayor. Well, because of equal time laws,
sure,
you can't be on the radio and be running for public office. Otherwise, it triggers equal time for every one of your opponents.
Sure.
And so they had to let him go from his radio job. He did get elected mayor.
Wow.
He was elected mayor by the popular vote. Very much kind of what we saw in Washington, where people, I think, were just ready for a change and rolled the dice on whatever that would be. He wasn't mayor for very long. They came along and decided, maybe we ought to switch to the city manager form of government now.
Okay.
Now that we don't control the mayoral office, let's make it the city manager form of government, which was kind of the hot thing. I'm sure you remember it better than I do. Back in the early 60s, most towns had a mayor that kind of ruled with an iron fist, and then this idea of a city manager form of government came along.
Yeah, I think they wanted a professional, quote-unquote, actually running the day-to-day operations and letting the mayor and the council set policies.
Sure, and, you've been into the nuts and bolts of county government and state government as well. I mean, boy, it's not an easy thing financially.
Yeah, my dad was a mayor of Essexville back in the 1950s, so
really,
I kind of go back that far. So,
did he rule with an iron fist?
Not that I noticed, but I was pretty young then. So,
well, but when I say that, I mean a very strong leadership position. Mayors pretty much had a lot more power than they do nowadays, where they're mostly figureheads nowadays.
Sure.
Yeah, they kiss babies and shake hands and try to facilitate.
Sure.
Hopefully facilitate consensus. Something that we don't see a lot of, I don't think, in any government right now.
It doesn't seem to be, especially on the big issues. So.
Yeah, and when we were talking with Jim Hodsma the other day, he's a candidate for the 62nd District, and I brought that up. It seems like we're pretty polarized these days. There's not too many people that you can name that pretty much do their job as an elected official by common sense and what they feel is right, and your name came up as one of those.
No, I appreciate that.
Because I believe that, and Jim agreed with me, too.
Very nice.
You probably don't always toe the parting line. If it seems wrong, you're going to look at another option.
Yeah, I didn't get sent to Lansing or run for office to follow the leader, so it's kind of the way I like to look at things. So.
Now, one of the things that we just keep hearing about in the news is this opioid crisis that, a lot of people are becoming addicted to prescription meds that have opiates in them. What's the latest now in terms of legislative action to try and curb that trend?
Oh, we passed some legislation. It kind of came out of the Senate. Senator Shoemaker had some bills along with a couple other senators, and we had some stuff in the House too. Essentially, putting an educational component in there for kids in school. Also giving pharmacists the ability to deny filling a prescription if they think there's something wrong with it.
Really?
Yeah. So, and there was a thing on TV last night in 60 Minutes, a big expose about one of the biggest, the fifth largest company in the country, and the amount of drugs they keep, not selling, selling to small communities sometimes on the scale of big communities. Well, they're going somewhere. So there's lots of probably culpability to go around from folks, but just something we're trying to do to at least make it a little bit harder for people to be able to get great quantities of these things and sell them on the black market. So.
The thing that worries me is that the people who really need it are going to all of a sudden have a really tough time getting the medication they want or need.
Could be if they're going to limit it to so many days worth of something, and if you're ill, you can't get to the pharmacy. It makes it that much tougher for you to get them. So hopefully we don't go that far. But I know we've done some stuff with pseudoephedrine and things like that to keep people from getting those things and making drug cocktails out of them, and so hopefully it doesn't go that far.
Does this also address doctor shopping, where people go to a second doctor to try and get a prescription?
Yeah.
How does it do that?
I'm not quite sure about all the intricacies of it, but it does, hopefully stop people from going from one doctor to another doctor and getting multiple prescriptions, getting them filled at different places. So, yeah.
I know you've also been working on a bill to safeguard the retirement benefits of first responders and other municipal employees.
That was a very big issue, and it came out of a task force that the governor put together. They had an 18-page report, and there were kind of 5 stages to it, and everybody in that on the task force agreed to the first 4 stages. In other words, we talked about reporting concepts. We got to report where you are. There are some communities that are probably so far in debt they're never going to be able to pay the retirees what they promised them. So, but the 5th stage, which is what basically a state takeover, which is what people were concerned about. And I think there was some support from municipalities in the beginning, and then things kept being added. The police and fire folks weren't happy with the last stage. So what we passed was basically stages 1 through 4. It does allow for reporting. It allows for publication. It allows for people to get access to it. And I think it's going to shine a light on those communities that just are really, really in trouble. Most communities that offer pension and retiree health are doing fine. They're in good shape. Some of them are a little bit shaky, and they need some help. And there's a small handful. The estimate, of course, we don't know because everybody hasn't reported yet. But at least in a format everybody can take and see. We're looking at maybe 20 to 40 communities that really have a problem, and they're going to need some guidance from the state, and that'll come at stage 4. But if they don't take that guidance, there won't be anything like an emergency manager coming in and basically having authority to do whatever they need to do within that community, to make sure those pension benefits are paid. So we'll see, hopefully, by the time you get to stage 4, the retirees and the community can see, hey, we got a problem here. We just haven't saved enough money to keep the promises that we made to our employees. And I think that's the main goal of the whole task force, was to make sure that folks that were expecting to get pensions, expecting to get health benefits, are going to get them. So,
has this bill made it through then?
Oh yes, yeah. That was one of the last things we did. There was a big hang up. Lots of folks came to the Capitol to talk to us about it. Mostly the police and fire folks. I got calls from both of my sheriffs. Other people that are in that position had comments to make, and so we scaled it back. Didn't go for the home run. Just a triple's good enough. That was fine. I think we're at a point now where a few years from now, when this hopefully all becomes known to folks, if we do have to find another stage to go to, fine. But at this point, you would hope the communities that are really in trouble would be able to find their own solutions or take the state's aid, on a voluntary basis. So.
How long do you think it'll be before we see an article in one of the papers that says these 20 communities are in big trouble according to the latest reporting?
It shouldn't be too long because most entities do they have a CAF, or a comprehensive annual financial report. And that kind of data is in those. It's just a matter of assembling them all for not only every city and village and town and county, but authorities like library authorities and 9/11 authorities and you name it, all the other authorities that we have that end up wanting to either pay a pension or retiree health.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say probably within a year we should have that list, and then go from there and look at the people that need a little bit of assistance, give them whatever aid the state of Michigan can give them and suggestions. And then for those that are, I guess, in a lot worse trouble, hopefully see what their own solution is to begin with.
Yeah, or call State Representative Dave Maturen with your brilliant idea that nobody's thought of yet. And we'll see what we can do because, frankly, we don't have a good solution for these maybe 20 communities that are in deep.
There's one community, I can't remember the name of it, over in southeast Michigan, actually has a millage to pay for the pension bonds.
Mm-hmm.
They've had to go that far, and the people voted for it, as I recall. So, maybe that's the solution. I'm not sure. But at least at this point, it's going to be known, so people will realize, again, in the community, the taxpayers, and also the employees and the beneficiaries, of the recipients of the benefits will also realize that we've got to do something, or we're not going to get our what we expected. I mean, the same thing happened in Detroit where they went to federal bankruptcy. They all took a cut.
Yeah.
And we don't want that to happen. So if we can stop before it gets to that stage, we're that much better off.
Probably could get a millage passed for the firemen and the police, but not so sure about the building inspectors and meter maids.
Well, when you get one of the triggers is 60% funding for pension and no more than 12% of your general fund going to pay for those pensions. And the health insurance is right now, the initial criteria is 30% funded and 10%. Well, if you take 10% and 12%, that's 22% of your total general fund budget going to pay for retirement purposes. That means you're giving the city or whoever $1, and you're getting 88 cents worth of services for it. So I think that's probably maybe a reasonable number. When you start getting 30% of your general fund is going for something other than providing current police, fire, roads, you name it, then we're getting to the point where your municipal services are really being curtailed. So.
Wow. Yeah. Boy, a lot in the news about the groundwater pollutants up around Rockford and the Scotch Guard stuff, with the Wolverine Shoe Company. What have you guys been doing, if anything?
Well, one of the last things we did was pass a supplemental spending bill. Actually, one of the things in the supplemental bill was Kellogg Community College state's going to kick in $2.1 million into updating the Regional Manufacturing Technology Center. So that's a good thing. That was one of the things we did pass as kind of an omnibus spending bill. But the other part, I think we put about $24 million into at least the first stage on this PFAS stuff. And it's not only the waterproofing stuff that they used up in Kent County, the Wolverine did with the shoes. It also is all of the foam retardant that went on, and it was used at air bases. And so either in training purposes, so there may be somewhat of an implication. Nobody knows yet because they haven't done the testing, but we could have some stuff over here at the air base and any other place that military installations had training where they'd use this fire retardant foam, which also had it in it. So they're going to be doing some testing soon. I'm not quite sure how long it's going to take, but I did talk to General Vadney, who was the general in charge of the Michigan National Guard here, and so I think they'll be taking a look at it not only from that perspective, but there's about 24 sites around the state where they've done this. A big former Wurtsmith Air Force Base up by Anscota. There's another base up in Alpena where they do already have large concentrations of this chemical in drinking water. So Kind of reminds me of the PBB stuff we went through about 40 years ago, because I remember my wife was pregnant with our first child, and that whole thing that went through, and it's not the same thing, obviously, but it's the same stuff. It's in the water you're drinking, it's in the milk you're drinking, whatever it is. So hopefully we can get a handle on this, find out exactly where the hot spots are, and start to take care of it. And I think municipal water obviously would go a long ways towards taking care of a little of this issues. So.
One thing that I've noticed when we talk to you, Representative Maturen, and I know your background a little bit too in county government and in assessing, and you seem to understand this property tax stuff very well, certainly more than anybody on the street, and probably as well or better than most of the people in the state legislature. So you end up getting handed a lot of stuff in that regard, don't you?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I've got, like I said, like you said, it's a background. I spent a couple decades in the property tax business, and so I understand millages and tax rates and taxable values and personal property, and now we, of course, tried to spur on our industrial activity by getting rid of the personal property tax years ago, or at least phasing it out. But to do that, local communities are depending on property tax for a great deal of their revenue. And so the attempt was made to simply reimburse those communities for lost property tax revenues through the personal property tax. And like everything else we do, devil's in the details, easier said than done. And so this is the bill I've got essentially revises the Local Community Stabilization Act of 2014. We found a few more communities that fell through the cracks because of different things that happened with their millages. And so this bill, and essentially, I hope it should be on its way to the Senate by now. So it passed the House the last week we're in session. Hopefully make everybody whole, or as whole as we can make them, and that not only municipal governments, but schools. So it's a very complicated formula. But essentially, you've got reimbursement for school debt, reimbursement to schools, reimbursement for local municipalities for their essential services, police, fire, that kind of stuff. Then if there's any money left over, and there is a bunch of money left over, then it kind of gets filtered down to, okay, now we're going to pay for other portions of municipal government, other entities. And there's about $130 million that is actually put into statute that didn't get taken care of in the first two steps. So then there's a little bit of a scramble for everybody else to take what's left over, which is a substantial chunk, and have that apply to municipal government. So just trying to make it a little bit more equitable and fair and keep people from falling through the cracks.
Representative Dave Maturen, thanks for stopping by and joining us. You enjoy the rest of your holiday, and we'll look forward to talking to you again in January when the State House gets back in session.
My pleasure. Thank you.